All right, welcome everybody to another world building workshop. Today we are going to be talking about character development. And the reason that we're talking about that, the why of character development, because, why actually should we talk about character development, is because having characters that develop and grow emotionally and spiritually and on an intellectual level are going to keep your players more engaged, more invested in your world, and in general, they're going to have a better time playing at your table. So we'll give it just a moment. We'll get a couple people into the lobby and then we'll get started. All right. So when we're talking about the character development, right? We've led everything up to this point. The bad guy, the adventure that we've felt, the setbacks, the impact of their decisions, and now it's kind of time to talk about specifically kind of the impact of the way that the moral dilemmas that we've presented our players with. Time to talk about how that's going to affect and impact the player specifically. And so, let me move my notes real quick. When we're talking about character development, yes. Man, doesn't that just sound like boring, right? And I don't want it to be boring because it's incredibly important. Hey everybody, it's good to have you. Instagram, come on over to YouTube, join the chat. Character development. I have to be able to write and talk. Development. Very good. So when we're talking about character development, it's really going to boil down to how can we show our players that they are different than they were, right? It's not a matter so much of, oh yeah, you've leveled up. Well, congratulations, everybody levels up. That's an aspect of the game. That's mechanical. But we have to remember the words on the front of the book, right? It's the world's greatest role playing game. It's not necessarily mechanically the best game. There's plenty of home rules and things that we have done on a personal level to make the game better. Hey, Carlos, welcome back. Yeah, actually, that's exactly right. So Sadie brings up a good point. It gives a whole new meaning to what my character would do, and that's what we're talking about. It's not mechanically, oh, I have this new ability. No, this is because of the trauma and the things that I've experienced. What would my character do? And we can't even start that discussion until we talk about 4 very important things. And if you've watched some of my reels on Instagram, you know that I love when players have traits, ideals, bonds, and flaws. That part of the character sheet that nobody uses, right? It's up there in that corner of the character sheet. Heck, I've seen some character sheets that don't even have it anymore. And it's so important. It's absolutely crucial, vital even, for us to have these things. And I'm going to tell us exactly why. So your traits, this is kind of the man. This is a more personality descriptor here. So don't just say things. I think the book provides the example. So if you want to read further into the book, go ahead and check out chapter 4 of the Player's Handbook. It's and I think the exact one that it gives us in the book is, don't use "I am smart." Yes, thank you for that generic description. I can see that your intelligence score is an 18. That's great. Give us more. Give us something that you've done, something that you've seen or felt. And so what they give is, I have read every book in Candlekeep. Ooh, okay then. That's an interesting, not only is that an interesting feat, it provides a basis for that intelligence. And that's what's valuable, is it's not just a descriptor. Because we could sit there and describe our characters, and like that's That's great. But the personality trait is really your likes, your dislikes, your fears. It's how your character is going to act in any given moment, right? It's the how of your character. How will they respond? How will they act when presented with things? It's how they are. You could also use ticks and mannerisms and things that they do. Meg Artist says, I once had a rogue whose whole reason for being with a procurement agency, of course, was to earn enough money to buy a boat because pirates sank his old one. Right. And that is a great backstory, but it's not necessarily specifically our traits. Right there, we're probably getting into our bonds, right? That's a little further down. That bond, you have a bond with the sea, right? That event. It was a defining moment for that character, and we'll definitely talk more about that. Our ideals. This is kind of the who, okay? Who we are, and this is definitely in the moral or ethical sense. Okay, this is in regards to somewhat of your alignment, but remember, alignment is just a descriptor to define what items we can use. There are specific items out there that only a lawful good whatever can use this specific item. Only good characters can use this, or a bad character would use this. That's great. That doesn't help us. What helps us is understanding how we would act in any moral or ethical situation. And remember, when we were talking in previous episodes, the impact that our characters have on the environment, the setback and the impact, specifically the moral dilemmas that we encounter, those are extremely important. Lorehounds unite. Yes, lore over life. For someone who plays a lore bard with absolute consistency, Sadie knows exactly what she's talking about. But this is someone who is, this is what drives them. What drives you? What are your morals? Who are you? And that is really important to think about. It's not necessarily who you're bound to. No, it's who you are personally. When we talk about bonds, that's when we get into what Meg Artist said. This is this is the what. The what drives us. And the who are we bound to. The who's can kind of be a specific thing or an event. And of course, those can swap, right? There are a lot of who we are and what we do in these bonds here. But this is what inspires us, who we are inspired by, who we feel a specific connection to. Other people's trash over fancy parties. Excellent. Everyone on Instagram, come on over to YouTube. That way you can see the chat. This is your what inspires you, what connects you to the world. Are you bound by this specific event? Specifically, like with the example that Meg Artist gave, the pirates took your boat, and now your entire life is invested into getting enough money so that you can get a new boat and go out to sea. And maybe there's a little vengeance in there. Maybe it's just to finally reconnect with the sea. And of course, you always have your edgelord rogue staring off over the sea, wisting after those long forgotten memories. And then we have our flaws. This is our vice, okay, our fears. And these can include our weaknesses, okay? And this is a tough one. When we're talking about our flaws, our vices, our weaknesses, it's important to recall that there's an aspect of, like, no, everyone wants to be heroic. Everyone wants to be the best that they can be, and that's difficult. No one wants to deliberately, like, weaken themselves, become less than they are. That's not the point. That's not the goal. What this allows us to do is it allows us controversial role play opportunities within our party. Yeah, fears are especially fun for those flaws. Because what this does is if we exercise a fear or a weakness or a vice, that provides us the opportunity to interact with NPCs, so interact with the DM, but more importantly, interact with your other players at the table. That way, you as a party can work to overcome these flaws and work to overcome these weaknesses. And that right there is a great way to overcome and develop. Right? Those opportunities to this provides us opportunities to overcome. Right? And that's what's important. Because that is really where character development sources from. The being one thing and becoming another, right? Setting out on the journey, being changed by this grand journey, and then returning the glorified Jedi, if you will, right? So different from the little boy who wanted to go to Tashi to pick up power converters. So different is the now the mystic Jedi. And I sense, the indecision in you, Father. Like, there's good in you, sort of thing. And that's totally not what Tatooine Luke would have ever said. That's not who he was. But because of the things that he experienced, he became more. He developed into the character that we see and love and experience. And then you get a villain, right? Oh, Sadie, I'm missing stuff in the chat. I'm so busy talking. We'll protect you, they said. And then you get a villain, right? Manga, I had a character who was scared of giant spiders. One of our first combat encounters was a room full of giant spiders. And that fear provided probably some great roleplay content. Because so often I think we fall on the idea that roleplay is between the player and the dungeon master, or the player and the game master. And that's not it at all. There's so much more that can be had between players at the table, which actually brings me to the next point. So this is like your personal starting point. These are all really important to talk about before you can move forward, right? And then once you've got that made, it's time to talk about the campfire. And the campfire is a great tool that I like to use that just instantly and quickly provides a connection at the table. If you will, just kind of provides a built-in bond that could be based around your ideals or your flaws or whatever, your traits. But what you do is you have one player, after everybody has introduced themselves, right? Then you have one player start, and oh, well, I know so-and-so because back in the whatever war, we fought side by side, and we're just making stuff up. That's totally okay. We're creating connections, and that's the entire point of the campfire, is to create a connection to someone at the table. Because I absolutely hate when you have a new table or players come to the table and you get that one player who's just like, well, I don't want to talk to anybody because that's not what my character would do. All right, cut it out. We are going to build in a bond. And that's what this campfire does, is we're going to build in a bond so that you have a connection to at least one player at the table. It's okay if your edgelord wants to be super edgy and not talk to people, but they will have a bond with your halfling smole at the table, someone that they love and care about and are, they've seen some stuff with, and that's what's important, because that is really that builds in a bond for them right there at the table, so that when these weaknesses are experienced, you can face those together with somebody. Because it's no fun having a fear of fire, or to use manga, a fear of giant spiders, if there's no one at the table that cares, right? It's all well and good that you created this super intricate story with this interesting and unique flaw, but no one at the table cares because you're too busy being an edgelord, or some sort of druid that, I only speak in Sylvan because of the purity of the forest, or whatever, right? And that's not helpful. That's not helpful to the table. That doesn't help role play. And what that does is it disengages your players. They lose investment, they lose interest in the table because they're not connected to anyone at the table anymore. So it's absolutely essential. I got so busy talking I forgot to keep going. So that one person introduces themselves. Oh yes, I know so and so because we fought together during the whatever war. And then that person that just got called out has to mention how they know someone else at the table. Oh, well, I know so and so because we're old college buddies. You know, back before the war started, we went to the same school of wizardry. Awesome, that's great. And then that person who went to that school of wizardry with your buddy, oh, well, one of my roommates at the school of wizardry was, this guy, and he just kind of worked at the local tavern, and we became buddies or whatever, and that's how I got a room with him, and so on and so forth. And then suddenly you've got, why does this group of friends exist? And the campfire is absolute gold for one-shots. It's good for like a session 0. It's important for a session 0 because it provides hey, why are you guys together? Right? But especially for one-shots, it is absolute bona fide gold because you only have so many hours. If you're running your one-shot in 3 or 4 or 5 hours, like, hey, chop chop, we need to get moving, and I need you to figure out who you have a connection with, a bond with, at this table right now so that we can move on with the story, okay? And that is powerful because it's a huge time saver, and it's a really important stress saver for dungeon masters. It allows you to just kind of relieve that stress. You don't have to wield this backstory and take everybody's 3-page backstories and like weave them together somehow, and you allow your players to figure that out. Because here's a quick secret: your players are going to do whatever interests them. Whatever interests them. Regardless of what you plan, regardless of what you write or what plot you develop or what secrets you create, your players are going to do whatever interests them. And so allowing them to create bonds that interest them, essential. So do it that way. Give it a shot. Give it a try. I was just talking with my brother who took my advice on traits, ideals, bonds, and flaws, and he just literally like yesterday ran through a session 0 and really saw huge success with setting people up. And what he found is he had a player who's like, I want to make the Joker. Okay. Okay. And I'm sure that you've all had players that have done something like that. I want to make a certain anime character. I think I had a guy, I want to make Guts. Awesome, cool. We can do a little bit of barbarian rage there, plus some champion fighter there, and okay, cool, there's Guts. And that's we can mechanically build those characters, and that's all well and good. But then, if you really want to play them that way, because we have to remember, this isn't the anime. They're going to do whatever you have them do. And so then, if you break down, okay, like, how would they act? What do they do? Why do they do it? Who are they connected to? And what are they trying to overcome? That is a genuine roleplay breakthrough moment for your players. And their engagement in your game instantly elevated. Because there's no guessing. Oh, what would my character do? I'll tell you right now what my character would do, right? And that's not an excuse to be a ding-dong to someone at your table, but what it does is it provides clarity for your players. And if you have new players or players that are kind of caught up in the character sheet, and they're looking at their character sheet and then, I don't know what to do. Man, think about what your character would do, think about your ideals and bonds and your flaws, and then describe it, and I'll tell you what to roll, man. Get off the paper, and let's make this cool movie, this cool story that we're making together, and I'll have you roll what we need to roll. Manga Artist says, be unique, give your edgelord a secret love for baby animals. And who doesn't have a secret love for baby animals? And Carlos says, I currently have a player who bases his character on Goku. Hey, and you have that character, and so you know what he's going for, and we can help walk them through, okay, what are your ideals? What drives you? What morally drives you? A connection to family, right? That might be your bond, right? What inspires you to be the strongest that you can to overcome all obstacles? What are your flaws? Maybe because of your commitment to that, you set aside all else, right? So even though morally you feel inclined to take care of your family because of your addiction to attaining more power, perhaps you've let some of those relationships wane, and that might weigh on the character. And how could that weigh on a character? And now we're getting into the actual development part. Woo! What a base layer, right? Now that we've laid the basis for character development, because we have to have a character to develop, and that's what all of this is. This is the character that we can now go forward and develop. So how do we actually develop them? It's through impact and setbacks and adventures. The last 3 episodes, right? Episode 3, 4, and 5 are exactly how your character grows. If you recall, or you need to go back and watch those episodes, the circle, the story circle, the plot circle, okay? Everything's normal. Oh man, this is not normal. I'm encountering adventures and setbacks and impacts. And then I come home and realize that I'm a whole different person. Okay? That is the aspect of the story that we're mentioning here. Okay? The last 3 episodes were this right here. Your adventures, your setbacks, and the impacts that it has. Okay? And now we're discovering, okay, who has this made my character? Had a really great moment with a player once when I turned to them and said, how would your character feel about this? And then they stopped and they realized, like, oh, they had totally forgotten that what was going on had a direct relationship with their god, like the person that the individual that they worshipped. There was stuff going on in relation to that. And so they had to stop and realize and think, oh, well, they would have, 4 sessions ago, they would have done this. But now, well, after what they've seen, and, there was a really great moment where their character deliberately prayed for aid. Their character called upon their god for help and received no response. Nothing happened. And because of that, in that moment, that great roleplay moment, somebody died. One of his party members died, and so he held some resentment for that. And so he recalled, oh man, well, because of the things that I've experienced, right? I might be a little bit jaded now. And you'll realize that this basis, everything that we've started our character with, our traits, our ideals, our bonds, and our flaws, have begun to change over time. And you're a totally different individual. This is Frodo. I talked about this last week about impact, but this is Frodo going back to the Shire and realizing, hey man, this is not, like, I can't do this. I can't just grow pumpkins and drink mead and hang out at the local bar. Like, I've seen some stuff. This is Luke Skywalker becoming the Jedi Master, right? Over the span of 3 movies, right? Luke Skywalker becoming different, and perhaps even a little bit, who's to say what the, I don't want to get into like, is the Force actually good or bad? No, the Force is the Force. And are the Jedi actually good or bad? Like, that's not what we're talking about. But like, you see Luke Skywalker at the end of episode 6, and then you see Luke Skywalker at the end of episode 9. And as much as we can trash on the Disney Star Wars, there's still some definite character development that occurs because of the experiences that he's had, and because of the things that he's done, and the guilt that he's felt because of those things, and so on and so forth. And your characters need to feel that. So now, the big how. how do we help our players feel that? And it really boils down to this. Ask them. We have to remember to ask our players, especially in role-play moments, because combat, that's mechanical. That's purely mechanical. Like, roleplay can happen in combat. But it's outside of combat, when they're overcoming something, that you can really say, well, let's think about that. Like, how has that affected your character? Who have they become? And how have they experienced life? What has that done to their ideals? Maybe they are a little bit more morally flexible because they've realized that the world isn't black and white. That was their idealistic point of view when they first set out on adventure, and then you slapped them around a little bit with like legit moral dilemmas, and they realized, oh man, this is not the life that I thought it was. Things aren't as black and white as my paladin order would have had me believe. And so then you can really develop, like, ooh, let's think about, okay, you want a multi-class? Maybe we need to take an Oath of Vengeance paladin, and we can tinker around with that and homebrew some fun things there. And oh, maybe it's time to take a level of barbarian because of this deep, insidious rage that's building inside of you because of your hatred for what the gods have done to this environment. Maybe it's time to take a level of, a certain type of druid because of the things that you've experienced, and you now have a newfound love and desire for taking care of life and the living. Your people's characters can develop any number of directions. It's up to us to help them find that. Sadie says, I have a character that started out happy-go-lucky, and at first, talk first, shoot reluctantly, until it got her boyfriend murdered. Right. And because of that hesitancy to take decisive action, someone was hurt because of it. And now you kind of have this jaded outlook. That's character development. And then you help your characters realize that, right? Say, hey, like, yeah, 10 sessions ago, your character would have been like, oh, let's talk about it. Like, would the adventurer that they are now do that? And have them sit there and think, oh, well, maybe they wouldn't, and maybe this has gotten a little darker. And that's the hero's journey. That's representative of the hero's journey, whether or not it's bright or anything like that. But it's important all the same. So that's everything that I have to talk about in character development. It's important, just to reiterate the why, as your players realize this character development and that they are growing and that they are becoming more because of their decisions, and that it's all impactful and reactive, they will increase their investment in your game. They will be more engaged because they realize every decision matters. And those moments are going to make your game more important to your players. And that is powerful. That's powerful because it makes the game more fun for people in general when they have realized that everything I do impacts everything around me, including my character. So I hope that helps everybody. Thank you so much for joining in. Please like and subscribe, all of the YouTube-y things that you hear on every YouTube video. It really does help. Please feel free to hang out. If anybody has a question, ask now, or forever hold your peace. I won't mind either way. But we have reached the end of my 30-minute episode, and if I don't see anything in the next couple of moments, we'll close it out. I'm going to go ahead and close off Instagram. Thank you so much for hanging around. I appreciate you. I appreciate you hopping in and stopping by and all the good things. Take care, have fun, and as always, take care of your players. All right, YouTube. I don't see any comments popping up. You can always feel free. Follow my link tree. It's in the description of the video. Come over to Instagram, DM me, shoot me a message, whatever you want to do. I am more than willing to talk Dungeons & Dragons or role-playing games in general I'm always down for some of that. But have fun, take care of your players, and have